Thank you so much for purchasing a Notorious Needle pattern. You're gonna love this guy. Hey there, welcome to the Notorious Needle. If you're new here, I'm Sarah, and I want to empower you to break the rules of conventional cross stitch so you can make whatever you want. In this video, I'm going to teach you how to make this guy, Fabulous Fred, the 3D cross stitch unicorn. Before you grab your needle and thread, you're going to want to read through the pattern that you bought all the way through to the end. And it may help you to watch this video once through before assembling Fred. It really helps all the pieces come together. If this is your first time working with plastic canvas, don't worry, I've got you covered. Check down below for the link to my guide to cross stitch on plastic canvas. In it, you'll learn the joining stitch and the overcast stitch, both of which you need to complete Fred. The pattern also recommends using turkey work on Fred's mane. If you look down below, there's a link to a turkey work tutorial as well, but this is optional. You can just cross stitch Fred's mane, but I think this looks pretty neat. Step 1 for completing Fabulous Fred is to stitch all the cross stitch. I recommend stitching the cross stitch and the turkey work before cutting it out. There are a couple of pieces that have blank spots where you don't want to stitch cross stitch. For instance, Fred's rear end, which we will be attaching the tail to later. You can see it's empty here and here where I've cut them out, and also on Fred's mane where we will be attaching his horn. You can see where I've left blank stitches on the mane. The turkey work I've left in the loops on, and those will be trimmed later once we attach them to Fred's body. We'll give him a haircut. Step 2 to completing Fabulous Fred is to cut out all the pieces. Fred is made up of 12 pieces in total. Pay close attention when you're cutting it out to cut a little hole on Fred's back, and his rear end, it's not what you think, will be attaching his tail there. Also, the blank part on Fred's mane you don't want to cut out because that's where we'll attach his horn. Step 3 to completing Fabulous Fred, combine the two sides of his horn. This way there will be no back. To do this, I will be using the joining stitch and 4 strands of DMC's number 744, which is the same color that I used to stitch Fred's horn. If your stitches are a little bit tight, you can use 3 strands instead. I have my needle and thread ready. I'll be using the loop start since I'm using 4 strands, but you don't have to. If you use 3 strands, check out the tutorial video that shows the overcast stitch. In it, I do demonstrate how to start it by burying the thread under your stitches. I'm going to line up the pieces of Thread's horns back to back, and then I'm going to use the overcast stitch on all of the edges except the bottom, because the bottom edge will be used to attach Fred's horn to his mane. Remember when using the joining stitch that you're going to line up the matching holes. At the lined up holes at each corner, outer corner, like the 3 corners at the tips of Fred's horn, you're going to stitch 3 stitches. At each set of lined up holes on a straight edge, you're going to use 2 stitches, and at the inside corners, you're going to use 1 stitch, and this will afford you full coverage. Of course, you can do more or fewer stitches as you're happy with the coverage. I like to cover the plastic completely so that none shows through. I completed step 3. This is what Fred's horn looks like. I used extra long pieces of floss for the joining stitch for Fred's horn so that I have some floss left over and I can use that to attach it to his mane. This is piece main 1 where I left some blank spots and did not stitch the turkey stitch. I'm going to attach Fred's horn to this piece. Separate the threads so that you can see the blank spot beneath. It looks like this. You're going to want the point of Fred's horn to face towards the shorter end of the mane. Because when we attach the mane to Fred's body, that will be the front. This is where I'm starting. Then I'm going to go across the back 2 bars, come back up, try not to catch any of the turkey stitches, go through that corner of Fred's horn, again trying not to catch any of the turkey stitches, and then pull it nice and tight and go back through that hole. So that is the first stitch attaching Fred's horn. Here's what it looks like on the back. And I'm going to continue the same way through the other 3 stitches. Fred's horn is now attached. This is what it looks like from the top. It's nice and secure, it's not going anywhere. This is what it looks like from the back. This will be inside Fred's head, nobody will see it. To end the thread, I'll just bury it under the stitches I just created. Don't worry, we will be giving Fred a haircut. Another option is to attach the horn first and then stitch the turkey work. But then the horn would be in the way while you're creating the loops. And since there are fewer stitches to attach the horn than there are to do the turkey work, this is the easier way. I got really excited and skipped ahead a bit, But what you should do now is you should use the overcast stitch on the inside of Fred's legs and hooves on the chest and the rear piece before you attach them. It's a lot easier to do it before. So I'm going to use white for the inside of his legs, and I'm going to use black for the bottom and the inside of his hooves. The outside edges will be used to join Fred's sides, so we are going to leave those blank for now. Now that that's done, let's go back in time. Step 5, attach together all of the pieces that go on top of Fred, starting with his nose all the way to his backside, Fred's spine. To attach these pieces, I'm going to use the joining stitch and 4 strands of DMC 5200, which is just white. These are the pieces that go in between the 2 sides of our unicorn and make him 3 dimensions. Each of these pieces has 2 sides that's 8 stitches long or 9 bars long, and those are the sides that we're going to be attaching them together. Join them in the order of your pattern, starting with Fred's chest. Then we'll move on to his chin, then to the first part of his nose, then to the second part of his nose, then to the first part of the mane, the second part of the mane, his back, and his backside. If you haven't yet, now's the time to cut out the holes on Fred's back and his backside where we will be attaching the tail. For an inner corner, such as attaching Fred's chest to his chin, you'll need to align the pieces front to front. And for an outer corner, such as Fred's chin to his nose, you'll need to align the pieces back to back, and I will show you how. The next 2 pieces I'm going to attach are Fred's chest to his chin. And because it's an inner corner that you can see right here, I'm going to line up the pieces front to front and then do the joining stitch. This is the front, oops, and this is the back. So I'm going to line them up front to front like this and use the joining stitch to attach them. So I attached Fred's chest to his chin, and this is how it looks. When you line it up, the joint seems to naturally bend a certain way, which is why we line it up that way. Now, I only stitched through this corner and this corner once each, and then through all of the flat lined up holes twice. And the reason is because these ends here will be attached later to Fred's sides. So we need to leave room in the holes to get the needle through again a couple more times without breaking it. Next, I'm going to attach Fred's chin to his nose with the 2 little pink snouts. And since this is an outer corner right here, I'm going to line them up back to back before stitching. So this is the front of each side, and this is the back, and I'm lining them up back to back, and then I will stitch them. And there we have Fred's snout is attached. I'm going to continue attaching all of the pieces for Fred's spine using the same joining stitch with white DMC thread. The important thing here is to remember to align the mane so that the horn is facing Fred's snout in the front. Now there is one exception to that rule. When you're attaching Fred's mane that has the horn on it to his nose, even though it's technically an inside corner, the horn will not let you line those two pieces up front to front in order to stitch the joining stitch. You're going to have to line them up back to back, and that's okay. Fred will still be fabulous. The next step is to use the overcast stitch on Fred's two sides, but only at those edges that won't be attaching to his spine. And those are only the bottom edges and the inside edges of his legs. You'll want to start here and use black around his hoofs, and then use white to stitch up his leg, his underbelly, his other leg, and then finish with black. All of the other edges will be attached to his spine, and so the joining stitch will cover up the plastic canvas there. I finished using the overcast stitch to outline the underside of Fred's belly and the inside of his legs and hoofs. And I used the same color to outline his hoofs that I used to stitch the hoofs. The next step, this is where the fun part begins. The next step is to attach Fred's spine to one of his sides. I'm going to go ahead with this side here. If you attach these pieces how it shows in the pattern, by aligning pieces back to back and using the joining stitch for outside corners like his nose and his bum, and front to front for inside corners like his chin, then your spine will look like this. And it sort of looks like a layout of Fred's profile. Again, using the joining stitch, I'm going to be using 4 strands of white for all of the edges, except at the hooves, I will be using 4 strands of black. So when using the joining stitch in this instance, try not to end or start a thread at one of the corners that also have a joint for the spine. By stitching over these instead of starting and stopping there, Fred will be he'll be stronger and stand up straighter. So I'm going to start at the bottom of Fred's front leg and I'm going to stitch up his chest, around his snout. Now the forehead is a little different and I will meet you there. I didn't quite get to the forehead yet, but I wanted to show you how to navigate one of the corners at Fred's nose. I'm about to go around this corner. I've gone through this last set of holes twice. Now I'm going to go through the next hole. Like this. Then I'm going to go through the same way once more, like this. Then I'm going to go through this same hole one last time for a total of 3 times, but I'm going to poke my needle through the next piece here, like this. I'm going to continue stitching along this edge and I'll meet you here. I've come to Fred's forehead. As you can see, Fred's forehead is diagonal, but the first piece of his mane is still straight. I'm going to continue along the diagonal line with the mane, attaching the mane. It's okay if it doesn't come out exactly 1-to-1. The mane is the right size to reach all the way across his forehead, down his head, and then come to the back of his ear. So just continue the joining stitch down his forehead like you would normally. Fred's forehead looks like finished. Just continue the joining stitch along the top of his head. Now when you come to Fred's ear, you're not going to be joining the main piece to the ear. You're going to use the overcast stitch around Fred's ear, and then when you get to the same level as his head on the back of the ear, you can continue the joining stitch and join the rest of his mane down the back of his head and neck. I am going to join the last corner of the top of the mane to the back of Fred's ear, like this. And then I'm going to continue on down the back of his head and neck, joining the other mane piece. Make sure that the mane is aligned so that the last corner of the mane, the last stitch of the mane will meet where Fred's neck meets his back. I finished joining this side piece to the second piece of Fred's mane, and I started to go down his back, and I thought it was important to mention that in addition to lining up the mane, you want to make sure that the back piece is lined up before you join it. And this is what the back looks like. See how all the stitches are lined up so that the ends meet. I'm going to continue stitching along Fred's back and down his leg. That's one side of Fred attached. Here's what it looks like. Now I'm going to flip Fred over and attach the other side. I'll meet you there. Side 2 has been attached, and this is what Fred looks like. He's able to stand up, almost there. Remember to finish off the edges at the hoofs. Because it's so small, I did a loop start at the top, did the joining stitch on the way down, and then I buried the thread inside the joining stitch back on the way up. Okay, Fred is almost done, and we are ready to add some finishing touches. Fred's mane is a little out of control, and we're gonna give him a haircut. All you need is regular embroidery scissors. Go ahead and cut through all the loops. All right, that's just about all of them. Now he's got this, this crazy mane. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and trim the way I'd like. I'm going to trim the front of the mane a little bit shorter so I can maybe style it around the horn a little. Start with too big, you can always make it smaller, but once you've cut it, you can't make it longer. All right. I'm gonna make all of it about the same length. Front will be shorter. Okay. To me, that looks pretty good. Ooh, he's got a lot of hair, doesn't he? Well, I think I'm gonna leave it like that. I can always trim it again later. If you're finding a lot of little pieces sticking to the white part of our little unicorn, you can just use Scotch tape or masking tape to just, or even a lint brush to get that off. Most of it should come off really easily. Okay, on to the tail. I'm gonna make his tail the same color as his mane, which is DMC 4514. This pretty teal, purple, and pink variegated floss, because it's a unicorn, why not, right? I still have some wound on my bobbin, so I'm going to, let's see. Now, again, you can make it as long as you want, maybe make it a little longer than you want, and then you can always trim it after. So the idea, I want Fred's tail to be almost touching from his little hiney to the floor, and so I'm going to make it twice as long as that. Let's see. I'm gonna spread my fingers. I'm gonna go around, I'm going to wind this around my fingers 10 times. Okay, I wound this around my fingers 10 times, and then I cut one end of the loop. Now I'm going to take another piece of floss and I'm gonna thread my needle as if I was doing the loop start. And I have a loop at this end. Put the 10 pieces of floss through the loop, bend it about in half. Now we're going to attach Fred's tail. My needle is gonna go up through the back. Poor Fred. But when this is done, he's gonna look fabulous. There we go. Open this up, take the extra thread out, and take all the pieces of his tail and put it through this loop. There we go. I'll pull it nice and tight. It may help to pull each one individually to make sure that Fred's tail is on nice and tight. There we go. Next, I'm going through Fred's tail and separate each strand of floss. The end of Fred's tail is looking a little scraggly, so I'm gonna trim that too. And we're all done. Great work. Isn't he fabulous? I hope you enjoyed putting together this Notorious Needle pattern. I definitely enjoyed making it for you. If you haven't already, consider becoming a VIP. You get discounts, tutorials, and sneak peeks on future patterns. Stitch on! I feel like a 13-year-old kid. I can't stop laughing at backside. That dog is thirsty.